Well, hello, everybody, and my name is Abe McCann, and today we are joined by three women veterans from the state of Arizona. We have Ashley Marshall from ASU's Veteran Upward Bound program, Julia Gusse, also from the Veteran Upward Bound program, and last but not least, Director Wanda Wright from the Arizona Department of Veteran Services. Our goal today is to highlight some female veterans in the state of Arizona, recognize what they're doing for the community, and get to know them a little bit better as an ongoing part of the Women's Veteran Month, which recently just concluded in March. So first off, we have Ashley Marshall, who is a Upward Bound coordinator for ASU over there at the Tempe campus. She served in the military in 2004. She's also the first woman to have served in the military from her family. She joined the Army and became military police and was able to achieve the rank of sergeant after 5 years in service. She has 2 deployments in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom under her belt. She was awarded the Combat Action Badge, and also other awards for her services during that time. She has a Bachelor's of Arts in Elementary Education and a Master's in Education in Gifted Education from Arizona State University. Gifted Education, sorry about that. She now works for ASU and supports veterans on a daily basis achieve their educational goals with the Veteran Upward Down program. She was also honored as the Phoenix Grand Marshal for the Veterans Day Parade in 2019. Also from the Veteran Upward Down program at ASU, we are joined by Julia. She is originally from East Los Angeles, California, home of the greatest baseball team ever, the Dodgers. She was mostly of her career, she was military intel in the Air Force, and she was stationed over at Fort Meade, Maryland, as a cryptologic technician, Morse code operator, and was promoted to E5 on her last year of inactive ready reserve. She currently serves as the Veterans Upward Bound program, and she is a mom of 3 adult children. She's married to a Navy guy, her words, not mine, that she met, and a proud grandma of a 4-month-old baby. And again, last but not least, we are also joined by Director Wanda Wright from the Arizona Department of Veteran Services. She's a generation of people in her family to serve in the U.S. military. As in 1985, she graduated from the Air Force Academy, and Colonel Wright began her military career as a deputy budget officer with the Tactical Air Command in South Carolina. During her 21 years with the Arizona National Guard, she served in various positions, finishing her career as the Director of Staff for the Adjutant General in Phoenix. Colonel Wright holds a Bachelor's of Science in Management from the U.S. Air Force Academy, an MBA from Webster University in South Carolina, an MPA from the University of Arizona, and an MA in Educational Leadership from Arizona State University. Colonel Wright's decorations and awards include the Legion of Merit and the Meritorious Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. Director Wright was appointed to serve on the VA's advisory team on women in 2018. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today, and quite the accomplishments for all of you. I'm going to ask you a few questions in no particular order. Feel free to answer them freely. One of the things that a lot of people have started to recognize recently more than any in regards to the veteran experience, the military experience, is how critical the transition piece is. That transition period is a very important time and can usually be the difference between a successful post-military career for a veteran or one that has a little bit of issues, right? So my first question, and I'll go ahead and I'll ask you this, Ashley. When you got out of the military, were there any real surprises in how you perceived others or how they perceived you?
Oh, very, very much so. I got out to go to school. So I was actually released from my separation date by 20 days so that I could attend first day of school at ASU. And it was very, very different. I mean, I think I was the only person in the entire class that I felt like I got dressed up for class when everybody else is in like pajamas, and I don't even know what they were wearing. But it wasn't just that. It was like, I think it was the disrespect towards the teacher that really got me the most when I got out. The difference, because I mean, I had been used to somebody was talking you are quiet, you are respectful, and then you have your turn to talk. But even when the professor was up there talking, you would have all these other students that were just, I guess, just continuing to be loud and not allow somebody to like listen. So it was very, I think the disrespect, yeah, the disrespect was what got me the most.
Thank you. Yeah, to kind of a follow along on that question, speaking of the disrespect and, and the perception and the way people behave, did you have any experiences once you transitioned out or following your military career where others assumed that you weren't a veteran when they were talking about veterans or displaying your veteran status? And how did you approach that when that happened?
I have to admit that just recently, when I received the call from ASU to come in as a coordinator, that's when I finally revealed the fact that I am a veteran. For some reason, female vets tend not to. We have this we hold this shield, and we don't allow other people to know of our service, and maybe we're afraid of the stigma that comes with it. But just recently, I have to say within the last 5 to 6 years, I revealed that I was actually a female veteran. And it was difficult for me to bring that out because the people's perception of veterans is one thing, but a female veterans is something totally different. And that's one of the things that I think I've been working very hard, and I know Colonel Wright will speak a little bit about that, is making sure that our women vets feel just as much as our male vets feel that they are veterans and they should be recognized as veterans. Too often do a male counterpart, for example, my husband, he and I served with the same MOS, the same everything, the same duration of time, but he has always been seen as a veteran where I have not. And the stigma behind it is, I think, what keeps us from revealing the fact that we are veterans.
Thank you. All right. Do you think that people, generally speaking, regard women's veteran status the same as men, or?
No, to be honest with you, I don't. I don't think that they do. I serve as an elected official for a municipality south of Phoenix, and too often I have male veterans that are on our city council, and I'm also on the city council, a veteran. And oftentimes when they have questions regarding our veteran population, they go to him before they'll ever go to me. Where in fact, he turns around and gives all the questions that come related to veterans to me, because I work within the veteran fields and I have more knowledge in regards to our veteran population, their struggles and resources and so forth. So that's common, and I think that's changing, but it hasn't gotten to the point where I'm seen as a veteran where as equally as he is.
Thank you. Director Wright, this question is for you. Being that the military is a male-dominated field, what role, if any, do you think that gender plays in your relatability to your peers, supervisors, and subordinates? Do you think those experiences shaped your future interactions when you got out of the military? If you didn't feel like it played a role in your experiences?
Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of go back to the last question too, just to give my sort of experience about it. In that, when I got out, I was a colonel in the Air National Guard. And I feel like I had sort of three things going against me. One being African American, and then an officer, and then being in the military. So I guess that's four. and really trying to navigate employment in the time of a recession. So I came out in 2011. And so the recession 2010 was really like the height of it. And as I would say an executive kind of leader, most businesses by that time had really started to shift out and furlough a lot of people, and they were not at that time willing to pay to have these high-level executives coming in. When I did interview, which I did not interview very much, and I will tell you that I prepared a year in advance for my retirement. So it wasn't like I wasn't preparing myself. And I think when I did go into the interviews, they were a little bit stunned by the fact that I was an officer and I had been in the military. Like, they didn't really know what to do with me. Even though I had, I think I had some pretty good skills to offer, you could almost see the images conjuring up in their minds about, what I did in the military. And it was very off-putting. And I really believe it was a very big struggle to try to get employment at the time in any of the higher level positions. I was just lucky I was able to network with some people and was able to finally get a job. So it really was a very disappointing experience when I transitioned out after being in the military for all those years to find that the outside world wasn't very accommodating for us. And so now I'll answer sort of the next question. I was a communications officer when I was in the National Guard. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that women were not, they were not sort of asked and encouraged to go into communications. And I felt it actually my obligation to kind of go after women who might be interested in the field, because not only was it good in the military, but it was also good on the outside. And it was really a struggle to try to get women to enter into the communications field. And so in kind of working that and getting the few women that I got, I feel like that was definitely helpful when I got out. And particularly in this job, when I have to try to speak to women veterans to help them understand, one, they are a veteran, and two, they do get services and benefits just like anybody else who served in the military, and that they should be proud of their service. And I really don't think that they all really understand that as well as they should.
A follow-up question. So you kind of led me right into the next question. You spoke of being in a male-dominated unit. What was the female to male demographic of the unit, and how did that, if any, affect or influence your communication style?
Well, I feel like because I'm not a judgmental kind of person at all. So when I look around and I look at my staff and my, whoever's working for me, I really try to evaluate them all who they are. So, maybe there is a tendency to be more servant leader than, say, dictatorial kind of leadership. But I will tell you, being in the military definitely puts you at the more autocratic end of being a leader. And when I did get out and I went into education, I had to stop that. That transformation was immediate. So I think that even though I probably wasn't on the really far end of being a commanding leader kind of person, it was enough that it was very obvious when I got out that I needed to change my style. And, when I joined, you're 18 years old, so I don't know if I really was kind of a leader before. I guess I was, because during my school years, I was the school president. But you're young and you don't really understand the leadership nuances then. I learned a lot at the Air Force Academy because that's a leadership institution. I was able to parlay that in my military career. And then since then, I've really done a lot of study on leadership in education and otherwise to try to be a better leader.
Thank you for that. Actually, this question is for you. Do you think that the expectation of how you act as a woman or otherwise changed from before you joined the military, or until you were in the military, or after?
So I grew up in Mississippi, so it was very, very different than what it is now. I grew up with a dad who thought that women should be in the kitchen, and it's very different than what it was in the military. So when I kind of chose to join the military, it was a question of why are you doing that? That's not a woman's job. So it was my roles of of the female and male were different than what I expect now. Like now I have my own daughter who's 7 years old, and she is way more assertive than my son who's 6. Like, yeah, so their roles are a bit different. But I think when I joined in, I realized that, I mean, I kind of knew it beforehand, but I realized that women they can be taken just as seriously as men can. I saw it. I did have some leaders that were some amazing leaders that didn't differentiate between the male and the female. And then I had some leaders that didn't think that females should be in the military. So, I mean, I've seen all sides of it, from before I joined in to when I was in to now. It's very different. So I can see it from all sides.
And Julia, did you have any experiences while you were in the military when you felt like there was inequality in place of whether you were a male or female doing the same thing and receiving unequal recognition? Julia, if you can hear us, you're muted, I believe.
I forgot to unmute. I'd mentioned that my husband and I met over in technical school, so we both had the same exact jobs. We went through the same careers. He was in the Navy, I was in the Air Force. I went through the Navy school for my technical school and so forth. So I didn't realize the differences until I actually got out. I remember going to the VA hospital a couple of months, and I was very young, and I had a little infant daughter. And I went to the VA hospital to get services, medical services, OBGYN services. They didn't have those available. Yet my husband, whatever he needed, whatever physical thing he needed through the VA, he got whatever he needed through the VA. Yet I was shipped out and had to go somewhere else and get my services. So I thought that was very unequal. We both had the exact same jobs. We had both served during the same time frame. And for me to be sent somewhere else and not served at the VA, of course, things have changed. And I was thinking as Ashley was talking about the last question she had. Yes, things have changed since I got out, and because there's some years difference between her and I. But I have to say that while things have changed, a lot of things have stayed the same. When I speak out, when men speak out, they are viewed as being strong, and when they're speaking their mind, they are viewed as true leaders. But yet when a woman speaks out and she speaks her mind, she is sometimes viewed as a witch with a capital B. And I'm sure I'm sure some of the women will relate to that, but too often when women are assertive and they speak their mind, they are viewed totally different than when our male counterparts speak their mind and view and have the same perspective. We could have the same perspective on the same topic, yet we will be seen differently than our male counterparts. And I'm hoping that those things are changing. And I do see that within my position of leadership in the younger generation that's coming through. I do see that the perceptions are starting to change.
Well, I will say that veterans in general tend to have some inherent qualities that may or may not be as present in our civilian counterparts, and you touched on a couple of those: leadership and assertiveness. Are there any qualities, and this is for the group, so feel free to answer whoever would like to. Are there any qualities that you developed while you were in the military that you think made it easier or harder to achieve your goals when you're getting out?
I definitely do. You know, getting that education from the Air Force Academy to me was like a golden ticket. And I don't know that I would have made colonel without that. And so all of the education that was behind it. And so, you know, having that opportunity, and then, you know, even though I was in earlier, you know, I started in 1985 as a lieutenant. Even then there was changes already happening because more women were coming in. And I never really ever felt that because I was a woman that they weren't going to give me a chance. And maybe the officer side of it's a little bit different than enlisted, I don't know, but I felt as going through my career, there's only one instance where my boss didn't rate my evaluation across as fives, and his position was that, well, no one's perfect when they're a lieutenant, which, I mean, I guess I could say that. But I always thought that that was kind of a, you know, you're supposed to be compared to your peers. And I knew I was doing way better than my peers. So I didn't understand why that happened. But from that point on, I never had any real issues with the work that I was doing and the way that I was treated. I feel like I was treated fairly. And the fact that I made it to colonel, I think, speaks to the fact that I was able to do it with not many barriers.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I know for myself, before I joined the military, I'm one of 5 children, and I'm the second oldest. And I was, if you know me, you probably wouldn't believe it, but I was a very quiet person. Like I was kind of like, I was kind of like a nerd. I used to read books. I kept to myself. When I was at school, I had like maybe 1 or 2 friends. Especially in high school when I moved to Arizona from Mississippi. So I kind of started all over again in high school. I was very quiet. So when I joined the military, it was a very big surprise to my family. And it kind of broke me out of my shell. I was learning leadership skills. I was learning how to stand up for myself. I was surrounded by a bunch of different people that in my small little world, I'd never been introduced to. So, it was very eye-opening. So by the time I got out, I felt powerful in a way that I had done something that normal 23-year-olds never did. I mean, I joined the military when I was 18. I got out when I was 23, and it was a big thing for me, because I was going back to school with these kids who had never done something like I had done, especially at the age of 18. So I think it gave me a little bit of confidence in myself. And it taught me a lot. It also taught me that there are, like I said, there are good leaders out there and there are not so good leaders out there. And I realized what I wanted to be, and I realized the ones I did not want to be. So it showed me the qualities I wanted to have, and then it showed me qualities that I don't want. So it really opened my eyes to how the world really is.
Thank you for that. Okay, so last question for the group. Feel free to answer. Do you think the expectations of women in your line of work are the same or different than the expectations of you in the military? Did you feel pressure to portray yourself different from how you did when you were in the military? So kind of a two-parter.
I think I hold a couple of different roles within the community. I think the expectations should be equal across the board, and expectations for men should be as equal as expectations for women. But unfortunately, at times we have to prove ourselves. We have to work twice as hard to prove ourselves. That's the way I feel. Maybe not everyone feels the same way, but I think I wanted to piggyback on what the previous question you had asked regarding our education. If we think our military background had any influence on us. I grew up in East Los Angeles, California, which is a rough area. If anyone knows where exactly I grew up in, and I felt like the military had formed me to the person that I am today. I owe a ton of gratitude for having served, and the experiences that I had while in the service. I mean, what other country would have given an opportunity to I'm a first-generation American. My parents were born in Mexico. I'm first generation. So I couldn't imagine any other country that would have given the opportunities that I had. And for those reasons, I think it's very valuable for us to continue to educate the younger population of the opportunities that are out there, especially within the military, for both men and women. I mean, it did wonders for me, and I know it would do wonders for some of the, I sometimes think it should be mandatory, but hey, other countries have done it. Maybe this country should adopt it. It would change so many different attitudes amongst our young people. But anyways, I think it's been great to have this conversation with these 2 fabulous women that are from different backgrounds, because one of enlisted, younger than I am, and the other one is an officer who has totally different experiences. She served a lot longer than I did. But I think I wanted to thank you, first of all. And we never give you an opportunity, Abe, to introduce yourself, but I'm not certain if you'll do that later. But thank you.
It's all about you ladies today. I'm just here to facilitate a conversation, but thank you for that.
So I would just have to say that I kind of went into two lines of work after I retired. One was into education, and there are a lot of women in education. And so when I was talking to you previously about me going into education and them not really understanding my leadership style, they definitely thought I was much more of a dictator because, as you know, in the military, people respond to officer commands and they do what they say. And the teachers were not having it. And so I had to really transform myself and to, ask questions in a different way and learn how to sort of respond to them in a way that they felt comfortable about doing things with me and for me. And then my second job obviously was this one, in that I am the first woman to hold this position. And in fact, the first African American too. And I feel like, I don't know that there were many expectations other than veterans want you to do a good job. And so my bottom line for being in this position was, I need to do the best job I can for them every single day. And I never really felt any kind of judgment because I was a woman. I was never really in combat per se. And so I thought it important for me to ask that question when I was in the interviews. Hey, is there going to be an issue with credibility because I wasn't in combat? I didn't have the opportunity to be in combat, so it wasn't really my fault. And I'm happy to say that my governor didn't worry about that. He just knew that I would do a good job, and he put me in a position. And so do I feel pressure? I do feel pressure. I feel pressure to do a really, really great job. And I do feel a lot of pressure to keep the credibility up of the station. But another side of that is that I also feel when all of us come out and people recognize we're in the military, we already have some kind of authority. People respect people who are in the military. And so even though they might not understand what you are, may not give you the job, I still think they value the fact that you went, you served, you did what you needed to do, and now you're, sitting in front of them. So there's two sides to this, in that I know that sometimes employers or people who you're interacting with don't necessarily understand it, but I do believe they all give a reverence to it.
I do have a question for you, Colonel Wright. Has anyone ever approached you and asked you or asked you the question, why do you have a chip on your shoulder? Has anyone ever addressed that? Do you feel that you have a chip on your shoulder? I've been asked that question several times, and I don't feel that I have a chip on my shoulder, but maybe that's the military coming out. I don't know.
I have never been asked that question. And I really thought that I would be, because I, advocate so strongly for women veterans. Like, why are you doing this? We're all veterans. No one's ever really approached me on that. And I only imagine because, sort of the way that I go about my everyday business is that I try to do something for everyone. Even though I do advocate very strongly for women veterans, I make sure that we're doing all we can for all veterans. And so maybe that's why no one's really asked me the question.
That's a very good question. Just to ask of veterans in general, I know myself I've received similar comments several times, even in a joking manner. You may see it around the workplace, people will call you Sarge all of a sudden. That's usually an indicator that maybe I'm being a little too pushy. So yeah, it happens to the best of us. Before we wrap up, ladies, is there anything you would like to say?
I would. I mean, I think that Julia talked about it a little bit, but I've recognized, I tried to keep up with the Air Force Academy. Their last class, they put in 30% women. So it is changing. And I feel like the VA will definitely respond to that as more women come in and more women come out. that they're going to have to change their stance on comprehensive care within the VA. And so they're going to have GYNs and OB and all those kinds of things for women, because there's going to be enough of them that they're going to have to respond to that. And I would also say that I'd still recommend any young lady that I met to join the military. I think it is a wonderful place to learn how to discipline yourself and manage yourself. I think it's a great way to learn a skill if you're not really sure what you want to do. I think you can get a career out of it even these days if you really want to. And, you know, no one really tells you, but when you hit 20 years and you have that retirement, that's a big thing. And so I always advocate and tell these young women out there that if, you know, this is something that you want to pursue, do it.
I'm in total agreement with that. I have a younger sister. She's about 22 now. And even my daughter, who's 7, I tell them all the time, you know, or even anybody asks me about my military service, I tell them this is the best. It was the best decision I ever made in my entire life. It shaped the person I am. It gave me everything that I have now, and it gave me an insight that I would have never been able to get anywhere else.
Yeah, I just want to conclude with the fact that when I got out of the service, I looked for a program that would help me develop my skills as far as education. You know, when you go into the service, you forget about your math, especially, you know, you've been out serving for 4 or 5 years and you've been out of the high school for that long. So I wanted to get my degree, and my math skills were horrible. So I looked for a program, and I actually found Veterans Upward Bound in Southern California in the Teleco building. So I'm not only a graduate and an alumni of VUB, but I think it's wonderful that I was given the opportunity to be the director of the program here at Arizona State University. I'm also the first female the program's been at ASU for 45 years, and I'm the first female veteran to run the program. So it speaks volumes that times are changing. The population is changing, but one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that a lot of veterans coming out of active duty need that math refresher course. We forget it when we're in, and we just need to develop that. And unfortunately or fortunately, we all have to pass, in order to get a bachelor's degree or higher, we all have to pass those math requirements. So I'm going to put a plug, shameless plug for VUB, but it really works. Trio VUB works. I'm living proof that it works. I finished my bachelor's, I went off to get my master's, but and I also have to give you kudos, Abe, for working with all our students, making sure that they're getting their education through different resources. Not every student that we put through has to go to get a bachelor's degree or an associate's through one of the community colleges. We have technical schools such as Acronis has been a big partner for VUB. So if you wouldn't mind, let us know what position you hold with Acronis, Abe.
Well, thank you. And to piggyback off your comments, I too am a member of VUB. I can personally attest to its effectiveness. And I work with a lot of your students. So we get a lot of veterans, like you say, that maybe are a little unsure about a secondary education, pursuing long-term degree goals. And so they come to us, and we provide them with free cybersecurity certification and training, as well as employment assistance. And you know what we also do? We also encourage them to back talk to you and say, now that you've got a certificate, really think about getting that bachelor's degree. Really think about building a solid background so that you can go far in life. So my job there is I run the program, the Acronis SES Vets Cyber Training Program, and I'm in charge of, well, pretty much everything. I recruit students, interview the students, place the students. The only thing I don't do is train them on the cyber, because if I did, we would be massive failure. No one would be graduated. So, but yeah, if you would like any more information, you can contact me at, just go to our main webpage, acronissesvets.com. Hit click on the application inquiry page. It's like 5 questions, and it'll send me your contact, and I'll reach out to you. We currently have openings for our June 1st class. So if you're interested, let me know. And thank you again, ladies, for everything today. Thank you for your service. You guys have some amazing backgrounds. I appreciate you being willing to share them with us. And from one veteran to another, I can tell you some of the best leaders I ever had in the military were ladies. And, you know, my experience is that women that I have worked with, served under, that were veterans, are amazing leaders. And, you know, for us male vets, we usually have no problems taking orders. So keep up the good work. And if there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again, Colonel Wright, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. I know you have huge responsibilities, especially right now during this time with our emergency stance. We are all trying our best, and we are working remotely. Thanks for working with us and doing this interview virtually and from your home, I'm assuming. But
Yes.
thank you again. Thank you for joining us, and thanks, Ashley, for putting this together. And thank you again, Abe, for being our moderator. Everyone have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.